Now let's focus on today's discussion. You can ask the CMO of any top tier company about their tips for reaching their growth goals. And a robust digital marketing strategy will absolutely be up there as number one. Digital marketing is affordable, flexible, and engaging. And it's more affordable because traditional marketing channels are really expensive. Even top performing small and mid-sized companies are finding better competition, improved best practices, and increased engagement through digital marketing. And if you harness this discipline brilliantly, you can build long-term success versus short-term glamour. In this series, we've touched on a number of themes and topics in digital marketing, like content and social media, and more recently on loyalty and retention. Today, we're going to go back to the basics, because whether you're working on a new business or an established brand, digital marketing is no longer an option, but rather essential to winning. So today we're joined by experts in this field who are going to share their tips for identifying customers and growing your business using the power of digital marketing and the plethora of digital strategies available to you. So let's have our panelists actually introduce themselves, starting with Melanie. Melanie, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So hi, everyone. My name is Melanie. I am a director of marketing at Better. Better is a digital lender, and we strive to make homeownership easier, faster, and ultimately more accessible. And so mortgages are our core offering, but we also offer real estate agents through Better Real Estate, title insurance, and homeownership insurance. And ultimately, we really want to own the end-to-end homeownership experience and make it better. And so my team here oversees and is involved with growth marketing, retention marketing, and we also focus on our go-to-market strategy for all of our new product features. Really excited to be here.
Wonderful. Thanks, Melanie. Thanks for tuning in. We can't wait to hear your experience and your thoughts on the topic. Next is Jenna joining us from Updater here in New York.
Thanks, Ian. Hi, everybody. Great to meet you. I'm Jenna. I'm our head of marketing at Updater. I've been with the company. This week marks my 7th year at Updater, and we've gone through so many stages, as so many startups can talk about, the ups and downs, highs and lows, from the early stages to growth stage to, turning it into a real business. So I've been here really primarily through all of that, and it's super exciting. For those who don't know, Updater is the nation's leading moving app. We help you move from one home to another a bit more seamlessly and bring everything into one place. And my role at the company is to oversee marketing. We are a B2B2C company, which we'll be talking more about today, I'm sure, at some point. So I have a unique perspective on both a B2B2C acquisition strategy, as well as B2B individually and our B2C strategy. So a little complicated here, and I'm excited to dive into it today.
Awesome, Jenna. Thank you so much. And next up is Sarah from Wave. Hi, Sarah. Are you there?
How's it going?
Yeah.
So I'm super happy to be here. So I work at Wave, also known as Wave Financial. We are an online accounting, payroll, invoicing, and payments, as well as now proudly moved our way into banking software solution. So kind of all-encompassing small business software. We were acquired by H&R Block just over a year ago for just over $500 million Canadian dollars, making it the 7th largest Canadian exit. So that's a little different for my friends in the States, but a big deal for us in Canada. I'm so proud to be a part of the Block family. As it relates to demand gen at Wave, I lead on the paid acquisition front, SEO, as well as email. And so, kind of the main drivers of acquisition for our business.
Wonderful.
Happy to be here.
Thank you, Sarah. It's a pleasure to have you. Can't wait to hear your thoughts on the topic too. Lots of great questions and looking forward to hearing your thoughts. But let's start with a question for each of you respectively. And let's start with Melanie. Sorry. Melanie, Better.com, or Better, if you will, in your new marketing approach, is a simple and less stressful alternative to conventional mortgage lenders and exists to solve an age-old problem of trying to find the best option and working with those legacy companies. While the opportunity is obvious and the solution is most welcome, just having a great idea that serves a much needed solution. It doesn't guarantee success. How is Better.com prioritize digital marketing efforts to grow the brand and the business?
Yeah, so ultimately, long-term vision is for all Americans to be aware of and utilize better. But to your point, that's just not the current state we're in. And so, how do we approach that and use digital marketing to get there? So, I did think about this a bit, and I think I want to kind of isolate it to one critical investment we've made this past year and speak to how that also trickled down. So last year, we actually hired a director of product for growth who was one of my critical partners, and we've established our growth function here. And so that's made up of our product team, our marketing team, our design team, data team, et cetera. And through that, we have really established a test and learn approach to everything we do when it comes to digital marketing. So when it comes to new channel acquisition and launching new channels, ensuring that we have robust success metrics for existing channels, how do we start to scale and understand the liquidity, and then also for email marketing, for example, everything we do, we're trying to test and learn and ultimately drive our business growth. And from that, that starts to really establish our brand and who we are. So with that growth function being established, we've also been really fortunate to hire out some really amazing capabilities and teams. And so I think the advice here is, if you can't build out the entire package that we have, really comes down to thinking about hiring out an organic team and an SEO expert. I think for most industries, again, this doesn't apply, as a blanket statement, but SEO is really critical to invest in as early as possible to start to see the success down the line. I think second to that, I really enjoyed investing in our retention and lifecycle marketing. I think it's such a powerful lever, and understanding how to use it, to also use it as a testing mechanism to apply learnings across other channels. And then lastly, I think we've prioritized and really built out an amazing data function. Data first marketing, I think, is something we're all quite familiar with, and it's really core to our success. And it's a complex industry that we're in. Attribution is really tricky. Testing is really tricky in a sense. And so we, again, are fortunate that we can make those hires, but also, taking courses, learning yourself how to be better versed in that is something that we prioritize. So starting with that growth function and having that just inform everything we've done to date has been really powerful and helped us to grow.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I think that shift into a growth team is relatively new in terms of the specific disciplines that make up a growth team. So looking forward to hearing a little bit more about that. Thanks, Melanie. Question for Jenna. Similar to better.com, Updater is a great solution to a massive need in the category of moving. Thank goodness for that. Looking back on the past few years of Updater's growth, where you've pivoted from a B2C to B2B to B2B2C, as you mentioned, how have you leveraged your marketing data to infer valuable insights to refine the business model?
Glad you pointed that out. And like I said before, guys, it's been an interesting ride. And part of those pivots, you really realize what was working, what wasn't. And in sort of our preparation for this call today, I was thinking back into why we did what we did. And it's kind of important to have a little bit of context for all the entrepreneurs out there who might be afraid of the word pivot. Don't be. It can be your best friend. Long story short, we're a leading moving app. We help with everything from setting up your TV internet to forwarding your mail to buying boxes to booking a moving company, everything that you need when you move. And if you think about it, when we were B2C in the very early days when I joined the company, we were employing lots of digital marketing strategies that you would probably assume we would to acquire customers. And we're all using a lot of the same playbooks, right? But what we realized, and we received a lot of the same feedback over and over again, which was, this thing is super cool. However, I wish I knew about it a few weeks ago. So we were missing people from a timeline perspective, because moving is such a timely, it takes place over a very short period of time. And there's a very specific journey and order of items, that order of action you have to, take when you're moving. So, in my mind, one of our biggest wins was actually moving to a B2B2C model, which was trying to figure out who works with movers upstream that we can partner with, whether it's mortgage lenders, like Melanie, or it's real estate brokerages or property management companies. We essentially built essentially a two-sided B2B network in order to make our platform work. We needed partners to help us acquire our users through that strategy. Plus, we also needed providers, all the products and services that people need when they move. We have to partner and integrate with every telecom company, every insurance company, every local moving company, and it's local and national. So, Ian, to answer your question, one of the biggest wins has really been building a brand that thousands of businesses want and need to partner with. We didn't have that leverage early on, and you have to gain that and build it. But building a brand that thousands of businesses want to be a part of and want to participate in, it's complicated. It's complicated, it's hard, and it's really about the long-term effort. And you just mentioned something about, quick win versus long-term, or you said quick glamour versus long-term strategy. And for us, it's always been about the long-term. And that's, in my mind, has been just brand building, brand building, brand building.
Amazing. Thanks, Jenna. That's really insightful. And how you identified the journey in the time that people are receptive and open to and are looking for solutions as your opportunity to go into the B2B sort of pivot, which is fantastic. And congrats on that. And finally, Sarah, Wave is an award-winning financial software company, as you just alluded to. In your role as the director of demand generation, could you walk us through your responsibilities and how you blend art and science when planning your growth strategy for the business?
Yeah, for sure. So it's interesting because it's an all-encompassing role, and we've heard little bits and pieces. So Wave is B2B, but it's almost like B2C because we're dealing with small business owners. So we're typically dealing with businesses that are the size between 1 and 5, 1 to 10 people at best. And so when we're thinking about who we're acquiring, it's generally speaking, it's the owner, that's the single decision maker. And it becomes somewhat B2C in nature as a result of that, because it's generally one person that we're targeting. So that informs our strategies, right? And it's unique a little bit in that sense. So for us, in my role, is deeply looking at both the organic and the paid side. So from an SEO perspective, SEO is extremely important, especially in B2B. My past experience is heavy on the retail e-commerce side. Walmart, Loblaw, the largest retailer in Canada, and a few other ones. And so brand matters, especially more on the B2C side. And I would argue it matters a little bit less on the B2B side, because at the end of the day, thinking about, are we trying to be the Nike of accounting software? Do we even need to be the Nike of accounting software? Maybe, maybe not. But is that meeting our customers' needs? And in many cases, it may be a yes or a no, especially as we deal with small businesses who deal with extremely challenging circumstances. So that's kind of on that side. So SEO is very important, more so I would say than in other environments. So it won't apply to everybody. From a paid perspective, it's an extremely efficient engine for us to acquire. So paid is kind of rolled up into my team, as well as email. And email obviously plays roles in various parts of the funnel, from prospecting, onboarding, cross product adoption, because we do offer multiple products within our software, as well as retention, transactional, and things like that. So email is very all encompassing, but has a huge part to do with every part of the funnel, versus SEO is very top of funnel. Paid definitely at the bottom end. And so how do we tie all of these things together to make them work well in a way that also makes them more efficient, so that we don't necessarily have to spend our way to acquisition, but we also don't need to email the hell out of our audience for them to know that we exist in the first place.
Yeah, amazing. And just on that one point you made, paid at the bottom, just to clarify, paid isn't always at the bottom. Paid can be top when you look at social and you look at some of the,
For sure,
the sexier paid channels, versus paid search, which is a far more qualified lead who's literally typing words into Google looking for a solution. Wonderful. Okay, let's get into panel questions here. And let's start in the same order in terms of that we just went through, so that everyone just knows when they're going to share their thoughts. But the question is, given the different businesses we have between you all, can you tell us a bit about your structure and your marketing teams and how the various functions work together? Melanie touched on it briefly there, but could you double click on that?
Yeah, so we definitely have a unique structure. So we right now are split a bit across our paid channels and our own marketing channels. And so a core acquisition channel for us that's really capturing that like bottom of funnel traffic is our affiliate marketing efforts. And so that actually sits with our capital markets team. Quick context there is that the affiliates that we're working with, we're basically marketing our interest rate. And so the team that determines our interest rate is our capital markets team. And so they're basically pulling all the levers to determine what pricing should be showcased to acquire this qualified lead. So then we work with them to ensure that the onboarding experience, the email marketing experience, to Sarah's point, is cohesive and seamless experience. Second to that, we have our paid marketing team under the growth umbrella, and then our own marketing channels. So as mentioned, content, SEO, email marketing, and that's all working towards those same growth goals. And then we also have really critical to our success, our creative partners. So touching on that, mentioning that because SEO is something that we've really doubled down on, and I'm a really big believer in not just ranking for the traffic, but actually adding something of value. And the industry that we're in is so complex that we basically have to have writers that are able to digest what we're talking about in terms of mortgages, et cetera, and then simplify it in a way that, again, captures and then nurtures and then ultimately converts that traffic. So high level, we have a lot of moving parts going on. And I think that the core to our success is all just working through that growth function again and prioritizing through there.
I guess it's my turn. Melanie, that's really interesting. We deal a lot with the same types of complexities, right? You're writing about something that is complicated to write about. You can't just sit down and, take an hour and write something. You really want to dive in, because if you write something that's really powerful, it'll be worth it in the long run for you. So we actually recently restructured our team, which is interesting. So a little comparison, the old way we used to do things up until, I guess, last year or so, we had one marketing team for all initiatives company-wide. That included all the marketing for our subsidiary companies as well. So we would do all marketing for the subsidiaries from our headquarters on one team. So we had B2C, B2B, we had all of our investor relations, all of our PR, all of our event strategy, everything sitting on one team. That was a lot of fun. And as the company grows, there becomes a need to split that out into smaller teams that lead up to one large team. So we actually recently acquired a company back in December, and both companies came with their own full marketing teams, which is interesting. So we made an acquisition, and it was a really good opportunity to think about how the business is growing and how the marketing team should shift to reflect that. So we actually split our team into 3 groups. So Old Way was one team for everything. New Way is actually 3 separate teams. We have a B2B marketing team. So that covers all sales enablement, client success, all of our trade shows, specifically SEO, specific to B2B, PR, design, marketing automation. We're a Pardot shop, so building out everything related to B2B. Separately, we have a B2C, a consumer-facing digital team. So we are running PPC, we're building landing pages, we're promoting some of our new free features that we didn't have in the last few years, which is really interesting. And we have a fantastic SEO-driven blog for moving tips. So tips, tricks, hacks, all the things that you would be looking up on how to move boxes without, or how to move your china without breaking it, et cetera. Each one of those teams has their own design resources that roll up. And then thirdly, we have a user engagement marketing team. This one is really, really exciting and relatively new in the last year, where this is all once we acquire clients that lead to users of our app, then how do we actually engage those users? And that's a third team that's specifically a team of marketers focused on engaging through email, text, web push, and all geared toward helping users with their move, right? Saying, oh, it's day 14 prior to your move. This is what you're supposed to be doing today. It's all about mover life cycle and figuring out the right product, the right message, and the right time in the mover journey. So we all together work as like one large marketing team. And then in terms of collaboration, we also, as one group, work with the product team, the data team, the sales team, et cetera. And then we also have more foundational exercises that we need to do as well, which is like working with the people team and the HR team to do employment branding. We also have an investor relations team. So we're the writers for the investor relations communications and, making sure that all of our investors receive their comps as well. So there's a lot of foundational items that sort of sits within as the baseline for how we operate. And so, yeah, it can be complicated.
Yeah, so we have a pretty lean team at Wave. So we have demand gen, which encompasses email and engagement, SEO, and paid media. Appreciate the mention before, Ian, too, is obviously paid can exist at any part of the funnel. The part within demand gen is very heavy on the bottom of the funnel and heavy on paid search. I forget that there's another part of the world that exists sometimes. And then we also have a brand team. So we think about kind of in-house creative services as well as brand management as it relates to a core team. We also have product marketing managers. So product marketing being something much more specific to software is a role much more common in software versus D2C type world. Think of product marketing managers as somewhat your brand managers in a way. And so they're responsible for owning specific parts of our software and feature releases and things like that, and working with the demand gen team from a go-to-market strategy standpoint in terms of any new releases or any changes that we might make. And then we think about kind of collective like website ownership as it relates to our site is our sales engine. We don't have a sales team, so some B2B teams do, B2B companies do. We don't, due to the nature of the type of customer we deal with. So demand gen in some ways also functions as, we generate the demand and we're responsible for closing it too.
Wow. Okay. Great insight. And everyone's got their own little kind of tweaks to the strategy there. And for those tuned in, the next question is hopefully going to help those with limited budgets, because not everyone has the ability to have 3 teams, 4 teams, and all these different layers. So question, Melanie, Jenna, and Sean, if you don't mind tackling this one, what are the essential methods of identifying and finding new customers online? What's your advice for entrepreneurs or people working with limited budgets who need help identifying or finding their audience?
Sure, I can jump in here to tackle it, and then I would love to hear what Jenna and Sean have to add. So with a limited budget, the way I would approach this is there's kind of a few moving parts. So first is using free or low cost tools to understand kind of search behavior. So I guess even just to frame this a bit more, you really want to start with like, where is the lower funnel? Like, how can we go to the most high qualified leads and meet customers where they are when they're being proactive and indicating that they have an interest in your industry and your offering, et cetera. So using those tools to understand search behavior around, again, your industry or competition. And from there, you can get a sense of what they're searching for. And when they're searching for those things, what's appearing. So examples there are your competitors bidding on those search terms. That can maybe indicate some investments in paid search. Are aggregators or affiliates appearing? Should you go pursue those partnerships and or relationships? Are your competitors ranking from an SEO perspective? Ideally, if it's less difficult, should you go that route? So utilizing and understanding user behavior and knowing that we mostly turn to Google when we're interested in buying or learning more, I think that's a really great place to start. And then second to that is really understanding who influences users during this decision making. Mortgage is really unique because it is quite an intensive decision-making process. But I think what's typical in even more low-cost transactions is friends and family or referrals or influencers play a huge role. So understand that ecosystem, how those types of people interact with your customer, and how ultimately they might sway their decision. I mention this because in our case, real estate agents are a huge part of the purchase mortgage experience. And so again, might seem obvious now, but what we found through our research and understanding that ecosystem is that rather than starting with the customer, we might actually be better off starting with the real estate agent, and that might lead to actual broader success. So that's like another avenue to pursue. And then I think lastly, research at its core, surveying, getting on the phone with your customers that dropped off, and asking like the core questions. How did you land here? Where did you come from? How did you find out about us? And ultimately, what drove your decision? Your customers are your best tools. They will tell you what they're thinking, and that can also inform your strategy. So hopefully some mix of those, one of those angles will help you kind of pursue an understanding of who your customers are and how to go about them.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think that that's so foundational. I'm glad you mentioned all of those things, Melanie. If you are an entrepreneur you don't have a big budget and you want to make a big impact, I'm gonna build off what you just said there, which is, use those free and low cost tools to figure out what people are searching for. And Melanie mentioned you can bid on them and advertise. Also, from a B2B perspective, if you're marketing, you don't have to bid or advertise. You can create content to answer the questions of what they're searching for, right? So one of the main ways that we've driven customers and new clients over the years is by having a very, very crystal clear content theme that we use on our team, which is, quote, say something relevant and powerful. And that's sort of a strategy that we have adopted over the years. And if you say something relevant for what people are searching for, and you answer the question of what do our people want, right? What are they looking for? You can answer that question with content. And if you do it and it's relevant at the right time, and you wrote it really well and it's super powerful, that piece of content can be recycled. And so when recycling is free, which is super cool. So what I'm talking about is build a piece of powerful content, invest in it, use all of your knowledge, use all of your thought leadership, put 2, 3, 4 days into it if you need to, because you're going to be able to pick it apart and leverage it. So an example of that would be, take one piece that's really going to matter to your audience, hit them at the right point in the buyer's journey, wherever they are in their decision-making process, pick the right one, and then publish it on your blog, use it in your email newsletters, use it to nurture campaigns and push people through the funnel, use it all over your website, post it on LinkedIn, have your sales team post it on LinkedIn, advertise it on LinkedIn. You can just recycle it in every way, then make a video about it. And at the end of the day, you recycle it until you can't anymore. And that's completely free. And what it's doing is amplifying your own voice. And that's really, really powerful when you don't have a lot of tools in the toolbox. You do one thing really well and then speak a little louder with that piece. Just invest in a few core pieces and blow it up with your own owned, earned, and paid media. That's my biggest piece of advice.
Amazing. That's great advice. Thank you, everyone. Such great insights, especially for those working with lean budgets. Sarah, moving on to a question for you here. While it's important to find your customers, like we just spoke about, using some of these tools, it's also equally important for your customers to be able to easily find you. Could you tell us a little bit more about the importance of search in growth marketing?
Oh, search, my personal fave. So yeah, as I've mentioned before, SEO is a huge part of us being able to, at Wave especially, and in some of the past businesses I've worked for, to sustainably grow our business. So that's kind of been echoed here as well, is when you take the time to build an extraordinary piece of content, rather than trying to build 10 pieces, build one and do it really well, because you're going to get a lot of value from that for a long time. And so I will admittedly say I've had challenges at times, not necessarily at Wave, but in my marketing career, especially when you're trying to sell SEO through, it can be some investment up front, and it's hard, depending on who you're dealing with, to understand that this isn't an overnight game, right? Like when we talk about SEO, this is not something you do today and you're going to see amazing results tomorrow. Mm-hmm. There is some patience to be had, especially depending on the vertical that you're playing in. So certain verticals are going to be more competitive than others, and it may take you longer to index, meaning to show up higher in those Google organic search results. And there are other tactics of speeding that up. But that said, it is incredibly important from an organic point of view, building meaningful content that serves the needs of what people are looking for, and anchoring it also with brand friendly content that maybe isn't about a certain, that isn't aligned necessarily with certain keywords that people are actually looking for, but have meaningful stories that you bring them in with the SEO driven content, but you keep them with some of that brand driven content around and using that as a mechanism for meaningful storytelling. So for example, in our realm, as we support entrepreneurs and the very people who probably don't have big marketing budgets, it's to give them a bit of both, to give them that useful content and that meaningful content from an SEO perspective, and being really thoughtful from a keyword research standpoint in both paid search as well as organic. So on the paid search front is being cognizant of who your competitors are. when you start, thinking about bidding on your own terms, bidding on your kind of non-brand terms, so terms that have your name's not it, and then you're conquesting. How do you play up against the people that are how do you play against your competitors? And that can go awry real quick, especially if you're playing against if you're playing against a big player who has, I don't know, 15 times the more budget than you might have. You don't want to wake up the giant. And I've had personal experience with that. So you want to kind of keep that all in perspective, especially in your paid search game, and really focus on, understanding the performance that's driven at a campaign level. We're very fortunate to have a strong data science team, which again, if you're in a smaller environment, you may not necessarily have the same resources. I commend everyone who goes from 0 to 1, because going 0 to 1 is the hardest. Going from 1 to 2, a little bit easier, and so on and so forth, right? So you start to get those resources that help you scale and can help you scale faster. But that said, for us, utilizing working with our data science team to understand campaign performance has really improved our ability to execute on paid search super efficiently and super effectively when we understand what is actually driving the best kinds of acquisition. So not all users are the same, and not all acquisitions are equal. There are customers who are our best fit, and how do we lean into getting more of them? And so that comes from a mix of things and understanding what they're looking for and how they behave ultimately once we acquire them.
Excellent. Great advice. Really granular. Appreciate that. Thank you, Sarah. Balancing brand awareness with conversion can sometimes be difficult, as we can all attest to. How does your team make sure that brand efforts and growth efforts are complementing one another, and that the right message is being sent to the right customer at the right time, as we mentioned up front at the beginning of the conversation?
What Jenna said earlier is exactly one of the responses I would have here. When it comes to growth and SEO and content, ultimately it's informed by SEO and what people are searching for, but spend the extra days and time to actually add value and go past getting the traffic there. So whether it's putting a visual in, an animation, a video, etc., like recycle and make your content work for you, like have it do double the job. I think like just doubling down on that, like it's so true. And even though it's, the obvious in a sense, that's one thing when it comes to brand and growth. And then I was going to speak to just around ensuring that, like from a more scientific perspective, that you are measuring top of funnel metrics, for example, but you also are looking to see the trickle down effect. So maybe a CTA or an ad is driving a lot of clicks and onboarders, but it is ultimately driving to that conversion goal. And so it might take longer to actually see if that's happening, but it's really important that as a growth team, we're keeping in mind how, again, we are driving top of funnel to the middle, to the end of the funnel, and moving into that transaction, and that it's not just fluff at the top that we're driving.
Yeah, I think about this in similar ways from a tactical perspective, but at a higher level. It's really an interesting question between brand and growth of long versus short-term goals as well. Sarah, I'm sure you can attest to this. We have our sales goals, right? Like you have to hit that sales goal, but if you're in it for the quick win in B2B, it's really easy to be forgotten. So I tend to put more emphasis on the brand because I want to build a really memorable brand experience for our clients rather than one conversion at a time, because they're not going to be with us for that one conversion. That's the beginning of their journey with us. And we need to, entertain and make sure we're showing value and provide value and grow and build features that make their lives easier throughout their entire life cycle with us. So it requires way more thought leadership, continued creativity, and just constant effort. Like sometimes, to be honest, it feels like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. You have to keep going. But that's really what makes it interesting. And what makes it most exciting is that building that long-term relationship, it involves, like, we have a sales team, for example. So our prospects know our sales team. They've had conversations with us. They meet us at a trade show. They see our ads. They read our ebook. They rock our t-shirts. They see us around year after year. And so in my mind, B2B is really about that long-term relationship, not necessarily a single transaction, despite the fact that we still need to hit those sales goals. So it's really more of a balancing act between those two for me. And it's tough. It's a difficult business, you know what I mean, in terms of being able to keep that going.
Yeah, you're trying to satisfy sales and at the same time build long-term longevity at the end of the day.
That's right.
Okay, great. Next question for Sarah. How do you measure success? Can you share a few of the metrics you track on a regular basis to ensure your digital campaigns are meeting the intended goals?
That's a loaded question. We track a lot of metrics. I like to separate kind of we have lots of metrics that we look at, and then we have a few main KPIs. And so when we think about KPIs, we look at people signing up. We then we kind of bucket, we bucket users based on what they come for, right? So we offer a different variety of software, an accounting user versus an invoicing user versus a payroll user versus a banking customer. They're different, or they may come for different reasons. The reason why they stay is the all-encompassing solution. And so that's where cross-sell becomes really important. But kind of leading into, how do we measure success is, are we acquiring acquiring our high performer type of customer, the customer that is going to be someone who wants to adopt our ecosystem? And so we have some signals in place and learnings that we use to figure that out. So it's very down funnel because we don't have that sales team, right? It is a very immediate conversion. So it is that sign up to that user, which we like to refer to as high performers, and then looking at specific KPIs within our ecosystem. So did they take certain actions within our software to indicate that they're likely to be successful? So we go real deep from a down funnel metric perspective, that although we're acquiring up here from a paid search point of view, we hand them to onboarding. We have an onboarding team who functions as a growth and experimentation team as well, who we work very, very close with because their success is ours and vice versa. And so are we handing off the right kind of customer, nurturing them and bringing them down the funnel to achieve those more meaningful KPIs that indicate customer success? If they come in and we bring them, sign up numbers are nice. We can bring all the signups we want. But if they come and they don't necessarily take action or they don't utilize us in a way that has them adopt us and build that long-term relationship, which is so key in the B2B space, and especially with what we do, switching accounting providers is not easy. Getting someone to do that who's been doing it one way for a really long period of time to change is very difficult. For anyone who's experienced that, even in your personal taxes, that's a challenging ask. So making sure that we're doing that in the best way possible. And so, from a metric point of view, we look at very specific metrics around usage, feature usage, and down funnel success. Did they send an invoice? We want to know if we're getting that kind of user versus just that sign up. So we tend to look at down funnel metrics in order to inform whether or not we're successful.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sarah. Okay, we're going to go through three quick fire. Well, let's go through two questions here. Everyone's going to answer, and then we'll get to public questions with the final 8 minutes. So let's go with this one. What are your team's favorite marketing tech or collaboration tools? Let's go Melanie, Jenna, Sean, and Sarah.
Oh, I feel like this is so maybe standard, but we love Slack here. It is so critical to our success, and the Google Suite. We collaborate through Google Docs all day. And we also leverage Monday.com as a project management tool. So maybe not too unique, but those are the ones that come to mind.
Not unique because they're mine also. It's 2020. I have to choose Slack, hands down. Being able to stay in communication from afar has just been so meaningful.
Slack's awesome. So who am I to change course on that? Slack, we use Asana for project management, but Slack is where it's at, especially with the built-in functionality. It's a lifesaver these days.
And Melanie, who do you use for your marketing tech tools?
Yeah, so we also leverage some of the Google Suite platforms. And then also we've actually just migrated to Iterable for our email marketing efforts. And we're really excited to leverage those capabilities just in terms of how far we've come in terms of our growth.
Nice. And yourself, Jenna?
Melanie, if you need any iterable help, our entire user engagement marketing team, we run all email, web push, and text through Iterable. So if you need anything, let me know. And then on the B2B side, we actually are right at the very middle stage of a migration from Marketo to Pardot, which has been a really interesting transition for those who are deciding between softwares. It's if you're making a decision between those two, or HubSpot or Eloqua or anything else, like it's really more about the thought process between using these different techs and less about the features that they offer. Really dive deep into how you have to set up campaigns and how you need to think about it. I'm basically undoing 6 years of learning one way to learn a new way of doing things and a new way of thinking about it. They're very different. So just be aware when you're choosing your B2B marketing automation software.
Nice. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Okay, let's dive into 8 minutes of a rapid fire round. Thanks to everyone that sent questions in, and keep them coming. We'll see how many we can get through. What do you see as the main differences between growth-focused digital marketing and other forms of digital marketing, or are there any differences?
Yeah, so I think there are differences, and I think it comes down to ultimately like what is the goal of the digital marketing campaign and or channel that you're launching. And so I think it starts with kind of the core questions you ask yourself as a marketer. Who is the audience I'm trying to reach here, and what am I trying to say to them, and ultimately what action will they be taking? And so with growth marketing, we're really trying to drive our growth, so volume, ROI, et cetera. And so that will, take shape in a different way. I think I always talk about it that there's growth and there's brand. It's a spectrum of sorts, and I like to kind of live in the happy, medium. And so you want to make sure you have a cohesive strategy at the end of the day. If you're pushing a growth ad out on social and it's representing, a more targeted direct marketing ad, you want that to still resonate as a better.com ad. Versus if you are eventually maybe for an out of home on the subway and you see, just an advertisement about who we are, you want people to be able to connect the dots there. But again, who the audience is and what you're messaging will take shape differently. And that's where the differences stem from.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Question here from Mel to Sarah. With SEO being a key tactic at the top of the funnel, what advice would you give to brands just starting out that are working on SEO but aren't seeing the results quite yet?
It's a tricky one. I think there is an element of patience to be had. There are tools, both free and inexpensive tools, that can help you actually track at a keyword level to see your rankings and how they fluctuate and change. And you're going to run into seasonality. You're going to run into changes on a daily basis. We see that in ourselves as well. And to be okay with that. To look at also adding on email acquisition as a way to take your traffic that you're getting from a content perspective and just take it to the next level. So you're getting that email at the very least, depending on the kind of business and what you're trying to do. But it is a long game, so it's hard to say depending on the time frame that you're looking at. Are you going to see meaningful results in 3 weeks? Maybe, probably not though. And it's about being okay with that, especially when it relates to SEO.
Question here for Jenna. How do you educate or convince stakeholders that long-term brand building is worth the investment when sales goals are the company-wide priority?
It's a balancing act. It requires a lot of convincing, but the question is, how do you convince? I think you need proof points. At the end of the day, there are some measure, there was a question asked earlier to Sarah, right? How do you measure success? And not all of it is in terms of quantitative, right? There are definitely some more qualitative measurements that you need to take. There's other ways that you can look at this. And I think some of those more qualitative measurements, sentiment, right? Customer sentiment, user feedback, NPS surveys, even just SurveyMonkey surveys, if you're sending those out, PR, whether you're being featured in the news or not, right? There's so many things that are a little bit more qualitative that are hard to measure, but if you can build a solid case for those brand building initiatives and show that when you put effort into them, that they pay off in the long run and they provide you something that you can use tangibly for years to come, as we've been talking about, that's really where you can start to make a difference. And that was really difficult at first for me, but you start to chip away eventually. And then all of a sudden you look back, for me, 7 years later, and you have an arsenal, right? And that is how you know that you've done a really great job. But like Sarah said, it's a long game in certain things. And that is also one of the things that, one of the duties of the job that takes a little longer to build credibility with.
Final question here with the last few seconds that we have. Greetings from Greece. Hi, Eero. May I ask you, how can we know as marketers how to spend the budget properly when it is not a big one? For example, a fashion brand with a small marketing budget, where has to spend more on the digital part too? On SEO, on Google Ads, on video content, on collaborations with influencers? It's a big question, Eero. And we've been tackling parts of that question through our series. So I don't know if we'll get through your whole answer right here, but who wants to tackle Eero's question from a high level that will help summarize what we've discussed today for a lot of entrepreneurs in terms of how to just break it down and help them sort of prioritize their digital marketing tactics? Who's brave to wrap it up?
I can take a quick 30-second analysis here. My question back to you would be, have you found anything that has worked so far? And if you're just starting out, try a few different things, spend a couple of dollars on each of them, figure out, did something work? And then take that something and build upon it. These are just building blocks, right? And they layer. But if you find something that works, that gives you a little, gut instinct that maybe you're onto something or you have a hunch, invest a little bit more there, prove out the hunch, test it, A/B test, play with it a little bit, experiment, and see if you can optimize the thing that worked, whatever that may be. From there, then keep going, invest in that channel, and then take a little bit of spend that you made from that channel and apply it somewhere else. So my question back to you is, did you find anything that worked? And if so, invest where it's working so far and then experiment on the side.
Awesome. That's a great answer in a few seconds. Thank you. And Eero, please keep the questions coming. We'd be happy to answer those on LinkedIn or even ask our learning advisors for that matter. So we've hit the hour. That was super fast. I don't know where time goes in these panels. It was so much fun. Thank you to all of our panelists for taking time out of their busy days. You guys have a very pressure-filled day job, each of you, and it was so wonderful to just unpack your expertise, get your insights, break it down for us and for the audience. It was so insightful, and you've all been amazing. Thank you so, so much, and congrats on the wonderful businesses you're all leading and helping to grow there. And to everyone who tuned in from all over the world, thank you for taking the time. Hopefully you've learned a lot today. There are so many sound bites that we've heard today that we hope that you'll take away, especially one from Sarah, which I never thought I'd heard in terms of an accounting software company trying to be like Nike. Yes, let's do it. Why not? It can be if you use your digital marketing and you positioning yourself the right way. So until next time, thank you so much. Stay well, stay safe, and we'll see you soon, everyone. Bye-bye.